Yo, what's the crack? I'm glad you made it. In today's episode, I'm going to share an upper body workout for all of you calisthenics enthusiasts out there. As usual, I'm going to be covering well-known exercises because I believe that the time-tested basics are the fundamental blocks you'll need to build up your physique and strength long-term. But please don't lose sight of the fact that this session is a general and non-specific proposition. I didn't have you in mind when I put it together. I don't know your circumstances, preferences, goals, training experience, etc., etc. This means that you might have to tweak some variables here and there so that you can create an iteration that is better suited for you. Aside from absolute beginners, I am confident that anyone past the novice phase could greatly benefit from the principles and thought process behind this session or a similar version of it. If you're still in the process of building a strength base, I would highly recommend you to look for alternatives that would allow you to scale back the exercises to your level of strength. If you'd like me to make a video on regressions for calisthenics, please let me know by typing regression in the comment section down below. Alright, let's get started with the workout. If you are an OG subscriber of this channel, it shouldn't come as a surprise to you that the first part of this calisthenics workout consists of an agonist-antagonist superset of 2 compound lifts. Except for the abdominal area and the lower back region, pretty much all the muscles in the upper body are going to be targeted with these 2 bodyweight exercises. The first movement is a vertical pull with a pronated grip, which primarily hits the upper back complex, the rear delts, latissimus dorsi, and the elbow flexors. As for the dip, the front side of the shoulders, the lower portion of the chest, and the triceps will be doing most of the work. I have such a high regard for both pull-ups and dips that I'm gonna go as far as to say this. For overall hypertrophy and general upper body strength, you'd do yourself a great favor if you were to spend most of your time and energy on these 2 compounds. I know I'm not supposed to pick favorites here, but there is a very compelling reason for it. Unlike their close relatives, that is push-ups and inverted rows, both the pull-up and the dip have the trainee's body aligned with the direction of gravity, which in turn allows for endless overloading potential when you add external resistance. Although today's video does not feature the weighted version of these exercises, you should know that adding extra load is one of the most practical paths towards progression. Given that this workout is skewed towards rather moderate intensities, I didn't feel the need to perform any weighted version. But I'm just talking about myself here, okay? If you're stronger than me, you might need to add extra loads to replicate the same level of effort within similar rep ranges. Having said all that, with quality form always at the forefront, I am using a basic decreasing RIR approach for the first block of this workout. My goal is to hit 10 pull-ups and dips in each set. As muscular fatigue increases, the number of reps in reserve is going to decrease in subsequent sets, thus increasing the effort level required to reach my target number. Put it differently, I will have to work much harder to complete 10 reps in the 4th set than in the first one. Unlike what you're about to see for the rest of the workout, the goal now is not to max out every set, but rather to cause a stimulatory stress for growth without accruing an overwhelming level of fatigue given how much work I have in front of me. In my view, this diminishing RIR strategy is an effective tool to strike a pretty good balance between stimulus and fatigue within the context of a workout that is likely to go on for roughly 90 minutes. If you're not yet at a level where you can do multiple pull-ups and dips in a superset fashion, I'd encourage you to use regressions that allow you to complete at least 8 reps in each movement. Additionally, I'd advise you to train them separately, not one after the other like I'm showing you here. For example, you might want to complete a whole block of pull-ups first, and then when you're done with the vertical pulling section, simply move on to do all your pressing work with dips. And needless to say, you might also want to bring down the volume if there is still additional work ahead of you that is meant to target similar muscle groups. The next section of this workout consists of yet another superset. However, unlike the first one, I'm putting together one compound lift with an isolation exercise. The first lift is a feet elevated inverted row. These are going to continue to punish the primary muscle movers of the pull-up, but in a slight different angle. Here, the line of pulling is more horizontal. As you can see in this video, I'm using a platform to put my feet above the ground in order to make the exercise harder. This way, I can keep each set below 15 reps. Not having external resistance calls for a more disadvantageous body angle for me to stay within this desired rep range. And as for the second movement in this superset, I would say this. When it comes to triceps growth, especially the long heads, the French press with rings is an absolute beast of a lift. Given how little muscle mass your body is forced to work with in order to overcome the resistance, this exercise could be a very humbling experience for many lifters. Absolute beginners should not be concerned with this movement at all, but rather with push-ups and dips to develop a bare minimum level of elbow extension strength within a larger pressing exercise. Inverted rows are the perfect follow-up to pull-ups in order to provide further stimulatory fatigue to the upper back complex, rear delts, lats, and the elbow flexors, something that, in my opinion, most late beginners should start implementing. Still on the topic of inverted rows, but on a different note, I would encourage those of you who are in a more intermediate stage to try what I'm doing in this video. To first complete as many full range of motion reps as I possibly can, and then I proceed to do ever shorter partials until I can barely get out of the bottom. With regards to the second lift, if you're someone who can already do a decent amount of close grip push-ups and dips with good form, you might want to add this triceps killer to your workouts. Just bear in mind that the level of technical skill to execute this movement correctly is very high. There are many moving pieces that do require a tremendous amount of global tension and body awareness in space. If you do this exercise and you don't feel your triceps, chances are you're doing it wrong. But on a more positive note, if you do get to unlock this movement, this should be your go-to option to hit the biggest head of your triceps, something that won't happen very effectively with a minimalistic approach based on push-ups and dips only. If you are interested in learning more about the topic on how to effectively grow your triceps with a calisthenics-only approach, check out this video later on. Due to the multi-joint nature of rowing, there are many anatomical dynamics at play, but I'm going to single out elbow flexion in this video. The reason why I compartmentalize this muscle function is because the following exercise is going to overload the opposing one, elbow extension that is. So to put it in more simple terms, I'm simply picking my antagonistic battles at a smaller scale now. Unlike what I did prior, I no longer seek to engage the most muscle mass all across the board. You see, when you seek aesthetics, sometimes you need to be more surgical as to which areas you want to put extra focus on. Just like you saw in the previous superset, I programmed another block that is made up of one compound and one isolation lift. Biomechanically speaking, I'm just training the opposing function of the prior two movements. Instead of doing a horizontal pull, that is an inverted row, now I'm performing a horizontal push, a push-up. And contrary to what I was training during the French press, that is elbow extension, now curls with rings focus on overloading elbow flexion. If you look at the way I use exercise selection when the goal is hypertrophy, you can perhaps discern a recurrent pattern. I picked inverted rows as a way for me to further fatigue the primary muscle movers of the pull-up, which is the main pulling lift of the workout. Now, I'm choosing the push-up as the tool to achieve the exact same goal for the primary movers of the main pressing movement of the day, which was the dip. Unless you have some sort of specialization goal in a given exercise, it makes more sense to complete first that exercise you can do less reps of. If you can perform, let's say, 10 dips but 20 push-ups as your respective maxes, this means that the intensity at which you do the former is much higher than the latter. So, as a general rule of thumb, it would make more sense to do the higher intensity movement first when you are more fresh at the start of the workout. This is exactly how I've been using inverted rows and push-ups for the last few years. Instead of including more sets of dips and pull-ups, I complete a whole block of quality stimulus for growth through similar yet different movements. As for ring curls, I've been having a honeymoon phase with this exercise all summer long. Now I can honestly say that this is my favorite bicep isolation movement in calisthenics. It has delivered the kind of localized tension I would typically get in the gym only through dumbbells, cables, or machines. Now that I'm still on the topic of curling, one of the biggest mistakes I made during my beginner phase a few years back was to ignore, or rather not to prioritize, isolation exercises that overload elbow flexion. So now I find myself performing these more often, earlier in the workout, and with a greater intent. I'll probably make a video soon on how my arms have gotten bigger in these last 2 years. When it comes to bodybuilding, you should always have muscular fatigue in mind. Thus, I think it's important to point out the reason why I personally include push-ups towards the end of this workout, when 2/3 of the total volume have already been done. In a fresh state, I can do over 25 of these push-ups fairly easily, so it makes a lot of sense for me to pre-exhaust all the main muscle movers in a push-up through dips and triceps isolation work prior. This deliberate combination of muscular fatigue on the one hand and slight feet elevation on the other helped me bring down my sets to a more practical rep range, just above 15 reps. In any event, my default effort level here is the same for both push-ups and curls. I push every single set just a bit shy away from muscular failure, or what is commonly known in the fitness world as zero RIR. Now that the most fatiguing and stimulatory stress has been completed, I turn to accessory movements that could deliver benefits beyond strength and aesthetics. I usually sneak in some of these corrective exercises within giant sets when I train with all the specialized equipment in a gym. But in this particular workout, I'm going to use the final sets to smoke a couple of anatomical functions I'm interested in doing more of. On paper, ring face pulls and band pull-aparts are two different exercises, so one can argue that we're looking at yet another superset. However, this superset exhibits rather the characteristics of a drop set. Let me tell you why. A face pull is a blend of two movements happening simultaneously: shoulder horizontal abduction and external rotation. Out of these two, it is typically the latter, that is external rotation, that is going to give out first, mainly because much less muscle mass is engaged. However, some of the muscles responsible for horizontal abduction have not yet been exhausted to their fullest. That's what resistance bands are for. I'll just say this: if you ever try this combo, this will most likely be the very first time in your life that you'll actually feel your rear delts getting smoked into muscular failure. To my mind, this is one of the greatest finisher blasts you can use to ensure that the small muscles of the upper back get hit with the greater intent, and not only within the context of compound lifts like pull-ups and inverted rows. So, in addition to working towards fully developed 3D delts, you'll also be bulletproofing your shoulders. Not a bad thing given how prone to injury this joint could be. Finally, I'll give you a quick summary of some of the intricacies that this upper body workout entailed. Given that hypertrophy is the main goal of this session, fatigue management is a highly valuable skill to develop over the years. Apart from the decreasing RIR strategy I implemented in the first part of the workout, I also employed another method. As fatigue increases over the course of the training session, multi-joint lifts should gradually give way to movements where less muscle mass is engaged. In other words, exercise selection is another key factor to keep in mind when we program a hypertrophy-focused workout. I really hope you found a ton of value in this video. If you did, check out these other two videos popping up on the screen right now. I think you're gonna like them. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to choose all when you click on the bell to get notified every time a new video goes live. Stay fit, stay strong, help me raise an army of Super Saiyans all around the world. Peace.